This is generational healing, and it's my story. Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome for those of you that are subscribers. I hope those of you that are checking this YouTube out, that you will become subscribers. It's free, and if the information I'm sharing with you is not helpful for you, it may be helpful for others. So please share, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and please leave comments. Please leave comments in all of my videos. Where are you located? If there are other topics you would like me to cover, please, make those suggestions. I love the comments and I will respond to them. I do have buy me a cup of coffee if you're able to donate. That would be greatly appreciated. And I have had those who have done so recently. So many thanks to those of you who are supporting me. I am a new YouTube channel, just launched October 1st. 2024. Generational healing it's part of the Pluto Aquarius energy for the next 20 years and the launching of that Aquarian age, which will be a 24 plus, almost 25,000 year age that we are entering. Pluto is bringing it in. Who's Pluto? Pluto is this little bitty distant cold rock in the outer part of our solar system. And he was discovered at the time when humans, humanity, our scientists developed the atom bomb, the ability to destroy ourselves and the Earth. So he's a pretty intense little planet for being so small and so far away from our sun, because astrology is a language, it's a roadmap, and it was gifted to us so long ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, that they've found actual documentation of its existence on this planet. It was gifted to us to help us to understand who we are. And I think also so that those of us who were drawn to it or kind of had a sense that we would need to learn this modality, and certainly was not supported in our communities or in our society. But this modality is absolutely about being our individual roadmap, our collective roadmap, our generational roadmap. And Pluto is one of the three planets that defines us as a generation and as soul groups, and defines the work, the healing, the work of each of the generations as a soul group. I'm starting with that because we all know our individual sun signs, or most people do if they're listening to this video. This is a gift in knowledge, and part of the reason I am doing this series at this time is in order to shift from the last two ages, so about a 50,000 year age, or going back to the Aries age. It's been a very difficult time on the planet. The last age we're leaving is the Piscean age of service and suffering, and our sense of separation from the cosmos, the creator, the God, however you want to define him, her. We as humanity are at another turning point. And if we do our soul work, and if enough of us become awake and aware and move into our hearts and begin to open and heal all of our childhood, 7 generations back, 7 generations forward traumas, we will move us into the higher vibration of the Aquarian age. The lower vibration of the Aquarian age is what just happened over the last couple of years on the planet, but particularly the United States and our election. So Aquarian energy represents technology, internet, and the low vibration of that energy is the abuses of power, money, and sexuality. And those are the biggest 3 sins of this past 2 ages that need to be healed. We had to, with our own election in the United States, we're also at our Pluto return. So the US is going through their dark night of the soul, and we still have a few shocks and surprises as a country over the next couple of years to have us look at, acknowledge the shadow, power, money, and sexuality, the shadow of our own founding, our own country. And then make decisions as a people, because Pluto in Aquarius is about power coming back to the people, which means we have to wake up and we have to heal ourselves individually, and then move that through our family, move that through our communities, and move that through our nation. Part of my soul mandate was to become an astrologer in a country that didn't value women, didn't value children, and demonize particularly this methodology. And I would tell you, it's such a complex language. It is not an exact science, because scientists like to poo-poo us. It is a psychology, depth psychology. And I would say even Dr. Carl Jung became famous for his archetype theory. And archetype theory, he took from Venus, which is women, or love and money and sexuality. Mars is the male energy, so he took his stuff and brought it into the world during his time through calling it archetype theory, and then defining all of the different planetary energies in his work. So, because he would have been, kicked out of psychiatry and humiliated, et cetera, et cetera. It is critical for each and every one of us. I've already started this series on how do we heal the child within, or how do we raise a generation of children from a place of love and support and compassion and forgiveness and nurturance, and what is developmentally appropriate. How we care for a newborn is going to be different than how we care for a 6-month-old, and how we care for a 1-year-old and 2-year-old and out. But the first 7 years being really, really critical, and whether that baby sees the world as a loving and safe place, or whether that baby is traumatized and then has to spend their life healing that through very painful experiences in their relationships with their family, with their coworkers, with and out, and societally, et cetera, et cetera. So it comes back to us. And I wanted to share with you that I am, professional astrologer and a psychotherapist, and I have been working consciously on how do we heal ourselves? How do we heal children? My dream is a generation of children that can be raised with love. And then we will have true peace on the planet. I had to go through my own processes, and I would say there's not a whole lot that I haven't survived, and have been humbled to the point of, what is my part in this, and developing my intuitive abilities, and to listen to my family, my guardian angels, those souls that could support me in survival. And I do feel like I have had guardian angels my whole life. And that made me kind of cocky and got me into trouble at times. I am an early childhood educator, and for 18 years, and had a preschool childcare center that was very, very unique nutritionally, as well as in how we taught the children. I went through a long phase of I needed to research everything and learn everything I could about, how do we have basic respect from birth through a death process with our elders? How do we do that? That's been kind of in the back of my mind drivenness since I was, a child, and going, okay, God, it's like, could someone just give me the rule book? Could they just give me the rule book? Because I want to be a good girl. I remember that at a very young age, probably was around 7. So who am I? I was born in 1952. I am a Taurus. I was born into a family, the first child. My mother was 19. My dad was 24 and military and that sort of background. And I was a very sick, colicky baby and found out many years later as I had become a psychotherapist and an astrologer that my mother was a sick baby, colicky baby. And, so that went back generations. And my first child was born with a great deal of pain, had surgery at 7 weeks, and decided mom was not to be trusted, and his needs were not going to be met. I've studied all of this my whole life. And having been a colicky sick baby, I had rickets by age 2 because I refused to eat. And it was really fried my immune system. I cried a lot, which made my parents kind of crazy. So, that was the beginnings for me. This is going to be hard for some people to hear, but I'm pretty much detached from this at this point and have healed from that birth and that time to where at age 73, I am the happiest I've ever been in my life and at the most peace. So my parents would brag that the way they figured out how to get me to go to sleep at night. And that was to just spank me to sleep. And after a while, I was smart enough to figure out if I stopped crying, they stopped spanking. Part of why I became failure to thrive. And that's part of why I'm sure I was a very difficult child to raise. And by the time I was in high school, junior high school, I had figured out how to stay safe in that situation and really pulled inward, really pulled into myself, hypervigilant, paying attention to my 3-pack a day nicotine addicted father, who was mostly in rage. And many years later, got to see him when he got off at cigarettes, and I'm going, oh my God, who is this man? He's such a sweet guy, and I can talk to him, right? To being there to be soothing him when he died. I was one of the few people when he would come out of coma and, into semi-consciousness that he would let me care for him, massage and heal him, touch him, wash his mouth with a little swab and all that. So I have been on quite a journey. And today I would like to just give you the outline, because that journey of all of that stress and all of that trauma all the way through high school, through into college, and, and just in being out in the world, totally trashed my immune system. So it was inevitable that on some level, the whole family had cancer. And we were in an area, grew up in an area of Texas, even in the Air Force, mostly stationed all over the state of Texas. But a lot of toxicity in the water and the air, lots of military bases. And there was a time that I did marry, leave home, went to college, married, left home, and moved to Colorado for 31 years and had met my husband, and we had children born in Colorado. And I still spent my whole life researching and learning and trying to figure out, how do we do this thing? How do we heal? The good news for me is that I had one person in my life, and many of you will relate to this. I had one loving, sane, healthy relationship, and that was with my mother's mother, my grandmother, Lily Mae Davis. She had an 8th grade education, but she was a light. She was a light worker before I ever heard of the term light worker. She's a Capricorn, so very compatible with Taurus. I was the first granddaughter also out of 14. But she just, she was a worker, and they lived on a 75-acre farm and ranch, and they had critters. They had cattle, they had hogs, they had chickens, they had and 75 acres of corn and maize. And she was such a light. She taught me so many things. She would listen to me. She would help me understand my family and the chaos of, my parents and three younger brothers. She had wisdom beyond her 8th grade education. She had a practical, grounded earth mother, is what I would call her. And many, many times that we would visit for a week or sometimes a month at a time, because we were military, we could take a month vacation. I would sit on her kitchen counter while she got ready to bake, and etc. And we would just talk. One of those times was when I was 13, and having lots of questions about marriage and sex and babies, and she had 6 children. My mother was the second in line, and she married at age 12. So they did that back in those days. I know lots of gasps happening out there, but back in those days, she was born, I believe, 1910. Or somewhere right around that. We were walking down the country road just to get away from the house so she and I could talk. And I know that she planned that. I was talking about the family of origin and the abuse and the violence and having gone to another family's overnight sleep with a, kind of a slumber party for girls. And it was like such a different atmosphere. So in the process of that walk, she said something to me that stopped us both in our tracks. And it was like, she said, "You're going to be the one to break the cycle of abuse in the family." My world went blank, white and goosebumps everywhere. And I knew it was true. And I was 13 and I had no clue as to how. From the time of that, I got through high school, graduation. I wasn't an honor student, but I was pretty close. I got into college. I had, A's, pretty much A's and B's, and got my little 2-year business management degree, and then went on to do went on and got college courses over the course of the years, and then also private education. So that's how I became a psychotherapist, through going through the Hakami Institute in Boulder, Colorado. This has been such a potent and powerful, highly intense lifetime, really, for me in seeking knowledge and how do we heal. Flash forward to 2011, when I went through divorce and all of that kind of stuff with my first husband, and he died in 2008 when Pluto went into Capricorn. Trying to work with both of my sons in healing issues with him, and prior to his death. I basically had remarried in 2005, and I am with that husband at this time. A lot of healing happening, and still a lot that wasn't healed for me and for him. So we're, it's a lifetime process. I'm 73 years old, and as long as you're alive and kicking on the planet, you're going to be growing and healing. I knew that it was going to be that the astrology, the psychotherapy, that all of this, if I was to survive my 2012 stage 3 breast, it was invasive ductal carcinoma in situ level 3. And so very aggressive breast cancer. I had been doing mammograms for years and nothing ever picked it up. I did not get a mammogram the year before this was diagnosed, but I did research. I saw a documentary on Dr. Max Gerson and Gerson therapy, and I had felt like my energy was lagging, and I knew, in 2000, when I was caring for my mother with a rare form of pancreatic cancer in Texas, that we had 5 family members that had different kinds of cancers, and cousins, younger cousins, aunts, uncles. And so there were like, during that time period, there were 5 that were, and one made a transition. My uncle made a transition before my mother did. So I knew that having done that process, and I watched all of them do chemo radiation, get really sick and die fairly quickly. So it was kind of had an inkling. And since I was 13, I had also been studying nutrition. So it's like, there's got to be a way. And my grandmother and I would have conversations about what happened to them during the Depression, and how did they take care of themselves? And she was not happy with Western medicine at the time. Well, I was 13, so that's a ways back. And she basically said, on the farm, we had herbal remedies. We had, teas and herbs. And she said, in fact, even the animals, she watched the animals. And when they would get sick or they would get tumors, they would go eat certain leaves off of bushes and trees or berries, or they would dig up roots, she said, so I really truly believe nature is our medicine, that we can heal ourselves when we get out of balance, we can heal ourselves. Well, we were well into processed foods by the time I was in my teens. And my mother loved it because it was fast, so in the Southern diet, two scoops of 2 cups of sugar poured into iced tea, and a stick of margarine, not butter, margarine put into the green beans with, a few strips of bacon, and nothing organic, except for out on my granny's farm, right? Long story short, in 2011, I felt myself going, and intuitively, it's like I took a break from doing landscaping, came into the house and watched this 2-hour documentary on Gerson therapy. You can look up Max Gerson. There is a Gerson Institute in San Diego, California, and a Gerson Hospital across the border in Mexico. Max Gerson was a German scientist who came from Germany to New York, set up a practice. He cured himself from having migraines, and his daughter who died in her 90s, and he was told she would not survive. She had scoliosis of the spine and other issues. So he learned that doing juicing, and then combining that with the World War I medical intervention of coffee enemas out on the battlefield. The medics had run out of morphine and other antibiotics and all kinds of stuff. But that when they did coffee enemas, the pain would subside, and they actually started to heal. So he combined organic raw juicing and with coffee enemas with certain supplements. I mean, he did a lot of years of research before he kind of fine-tuned the method. I did Gerson therapy. I did a 2-month try of it. It was powerful. It really healed. It detoxed me, and I passed all kinds of parasites, and I won't get into that, but it helped to really truly detox and then give me energy. Like I was doing 8 fresh juices a day and 3 coffee enemas in the little trial thing. So when I got the diagnosis in October 2012, I knew that I did make an appointment with an oncologist, and my first appointment, I said, he told me, here's all, you don't need your breasts. We'll go ahead and do mastectomies, and you can decide if you want to, have implants or that kind of thing. But, and then we're going to do the chemo and the radiation, and here's the protocol. So when he got done with that, and my husband came with me, and when he got done with that, I said, you know what, I need to ask you a few questions. And my question was, how long do I have to live if I don't do anything? If I don't do this chemo, radiation, surgery, all that, how long before the cancer takes me? And he was like shocked. Anyway, long story short, he he hemmed and hawed, and I finally had to go, okay, do I have 2 years? Do I have 3 years? And he said, oh yeah, you probably have that long. So I said, okay, here's what I want to do. Gerson therapy at the time was a 2-year program. 13 organic juices. Everything was organic. Yeah, absolutely organic, clean, and specific vegetables and supplements and 5 coffee enemas a day and castor oil, 2 tablespoons of castor oil with mint tea every morning for 8 months. And then some other kinds of detox that were added to that as well. You're not to exercise, you're not to even walk around the block. So my husband had just retired. He was, civil engineer. He had just retired from a job in California. He, was shocked and upset and became my caretaker. So for the first 2 years, I was doing this protocol, which blew my oncologist's mind. He said, I've never had a person who did not just 2 years, but 4 years. I did the full program for 3 years because my system was resistant. It was a very aggressive cancer. And I did a 4th year of modified, like 8 juices a day. I have not done food testing. So what I want to tell you is before you do any treatment, find out what foods you can have and which ones you should avoid, because I was allergic to nightshades. And the Gerson 3 meals a day, about 3,000 calories, were heavy on nightshades. So potato, tomato, leek soup, a big blob, cup or so of boiled potatoes, mashed, no salt or pepper or any kind of spices were allowed. And then, all these juices, I had to say, absolutely, I cannot do bell pepper in the green drink because it makes me sick. I was working with a Gerson doctor who was in Oregon at the time. He's no longer here. I believe he's in Florida, but I don't know if he's still, a registered Gerson therapist because we parted ways in 2016. By the end of 2016, we had cleared with the Gerson, we had cleared the cancer twice, and partly because there was a little bit of surgery. I had a lumpectomy. We shrank it down so that it was a 3-inch mass to 1-inch tumors, and we shrank it to where it was just a 1-inch mass, and I had a lumpectomy. I was not doing well by October 2016. Went into the doctor. They did the PET CTs, and the cancer had come back very aggressively. We had cleared the right breast totally. The left breast was the original cancer was found. And so at that point, what I have done from 2011 and pretty much my whole life is I went on the internet and research, see what, they do naturally in Germany and Japan and China and Great Britain and South America and other countries in order to decide, if those modalities would be helpful. And I just did everything. So this is where I wanted to mention that I work with massage therapists, acupuncturists. I had a dozen women sending me Reiki and healing through that whole process, if not more, family, friends. Most of my family was real supportive. They were going, okay, yeah, I wish you wouldn't do this. I wish you would do chemo and radiation. So I really had to let go of everyone's judgments of what I was doing. By this point, 4 years into this diagnosis, and now my family, and we lost 25 members of my family to cancer by the time I had my diagnosis, including I have lost 2 brothers, and one of them also, the one 2 years younger than I am, had pancreatic cancer like my mother. And that my immediate family also ridiculed me for being, tree hugger, granola tree hugger. And we want all the preservatives in our stuff, and it's okay. I mean, I knew that I was doing the right thing for me so I could be strong. I did like I said, massage. I did acupuncture. I did, I was a Hakami body-centered psychotherapist, had done inner child workshops. So as I did all that 4 years of Gerson, every time I'd go down 5 times a day for coffee enemas, and those were like a 20-minute to half-hour thing. I would go inside and try to get my mind up here so that I could hold the coffee and be able to. I truly asked my guides and guardian angels to bring to me the memory or the of whatever it was that was tied to cancer. And in metaphysics, cancer is lack of nurturance. The right breast is the giving too much. The left breast is not receiving nurturance. And I'm going, oh, well, that's why that was so bad. That was why that was so bad. So truly wanting to heal and release, I had studied Ho'oponopono, which is a very simple forgiveness prayer at that point. And so I did Ho'oponopono. I talked to my inner child, and to say that I was never afraid is not true. But as soon as I got afraid, I would talk to my guides. I would take deep breaths. I would ask for this to be released and to know that I was being guided and protected and to stay on the path. About that time, after I had my bilateral mastectomy, and I studied the astrology. So back in 2011, part of the reason I did the Gerson therapy is I saw Pluto about to hit my Chiron, Pluto, the planet death, rebirth, and Capricorn, my physical body. I have Capricorn on the 6th house of health and work. And Chiron in my birth chart trines my sun in Taurus in the 10th house. So everything I had learned, I had also been in the process of teaching others, and through my child care center, parent education, and with my friends and my family. How do we heal these things? And let's try this nutritional program or whatever. In 2011, I saw this. I'm about to have, and I have a grand cross. So Chiron squares Mercury in Aries in my 9th house, opposes Uranus in Cancer, shocking family, emotional stuff. And it also squares my Saturn in Libra and my Neptune in Libra. So I'm a baby boomer. I'm a Pluto first house. But Pluto trines, like I've got a stellium, what we call a stellium of Aries planets. I am here to be a pioneer. And Jupiter is right up there on my midheaven. I am here to teach. I am to teach new concepts, new ways of being and doing, and to have accumulated in this lifetime a lot of knowledge and hopefully wisdom by this age and stage. And Pluto first house, Mars in Scorpio, make me fearless. A lot of times that got me into trouble. So I can't tell you how many times I'm going, okay, God, can we renegotiate this birth chart? I had no clue that this was going to be this hard. Prior to my cancer diagnosis, my stepping back into an alcoholic family of origin, I knew would test every skill I had and that it would be the hardest thing I did in my life. So that was the hardest thing I did. But I was able to bond with my mother, and she and I lived and celebrated for a year when she was given a month or two to live with this cancer. So I'm in my own healing, crisis, and I'm really reaching out to any and all and asking for prayers, and that as I went through this process, I can't list or name because I can't, I haven't asked them if I could list and name all of the women, all of the people, not just women, but the people who have supported me through this healing process to date. The mastectomy in November 4th, 2016. The day started out really badly. And I was due for surgery at noon. I didn't get into surgery because there were emergency surgeries that had to happen with my surgeon. I didn't get into surgery until 7 o'clock. I was his last patient. at 7 o'clock at night. And this was, they wheeled me out after 9. So it was an hour and a half surgery at least. And as they were wheeling me out, I didn't have my eyes open. And they were just kind of chit-chatting, and the 2 nurses said, "Oh my God, she's really pale. You know that her blood pressure crashed on the table, right?" And the other nurse said, "No, I didn't know that." They were observing me as they were wheeling me down the hall and going, "Yeah, she's still really, really pale, pretty kind of gray." And so I was wheeled into my room. I came out and I was hooked up to a morphine drip, which triggered me nonstop vomiting, dry heaving all night long. So I finally got that stopped and was able to get approval from the hospital for these 5 little homeopathic pellets for under my tongue to manage pain, to stop bleeding, to stop bruising, and that sort of thing. And the Advil. Every 4 hours. So we got through that process. I got home and I was not getting well. I was going downhill fast. That was early November. My son and my daughter-in-law, who actually saved my life, as a functional medicine doctor, was getting ready to open an IV nutrition clinic. And so she said, "Come to Colorado," because she saw me. My hair was straw. My eyes were sunken. I hurt everywhere. There was no place in my body that didn't hurt. I felt my life leaving me. So she said, "Come to Colorado in 2 weeks." And so my husband bought a Jeep Grand Cherokee because we were in California, Northern California. Had to go over Donner Pass, I-80 to Colorado in January, mid-January. It was a very difficult trip. I had no strength to even get on an airplane. Otherwise, we would have put me on a plane or he would have come with me. I got there and began a process of doing high dose IVC, vitamin C, and a lot of other nutrients, magnesium, potassium, selenium, etc. Lots and lots of nutrients. It's called, and she probably custom designed some of that, but it's called the Myers cocktail, and it was developed by the Riordan, Riodan clinic in Wichita, Kansas, which is another, kind of like the San Diego clinic, but they don't do the Gerson therapy. It was a clinic that worked with people that needed to do natural. And they do a lot of other things too. I never went to the clinic. I did contact them at one point. But my daughter-in-law began these IVs, kind of working me up to it in the first week, but every day. And my husband dropped me off, flew back to California, and 5 weeks later came back to pick me up. By that point in time, I had IV every day for 5 weeks. And when I picked him up at the airport shuttle parking lot, he hopped in the Jeep and he looked at me. He's going, "Oh my God, who are you?" And we both had a really good laugh. And I'm going, "I am doing so well. My hair was beautiful, shiny, no sunken eyes." And I had literally been out in the yard planting bushes and flowers and landscaping, doing a little, rock sidewalk, river rock, with stepping stones sidewalk for my daughter-in-law's house. It was so great. It was so good. And then a couple months went by and I needed to find someone who could do the IV there. I couldn't afford to fly to Colorado. And eventually she moved to Kansas City. I couldn't afford to do that every couple of months. So my daughter-in-law said, "Try this woman who's a naturopath," and I won't name her. At some point I will if she will give me permission. But she was in Grass Valley, California, where we were living in that area. We were in Penn Valley. No, we were actually, at that time, we were in Lake of the Pines, Auburn, California. So I met another soul sister. We're the same age, and I just absolutely, my friend and I connected instantly, and she started me on IVs. And then my daughter-in-law went to her training. My daughter-in-law learned more about how to do IVs and different cocktails, different treatments for different ailments. That progressed, and 2017, I was doing these things. By early 2018, I did another PET CT, and I was all clear. There was no cancer anywhere in my body. I had healed. I was landscaping and still doing, astrology for family and friends, and still weak, but regular IV helped me to not only heal my body, but it's after I had been through the 4-year Gerson detox. This was my fountain of youth. I mean, my hair again started getting. I had this darker streak where my old, dishwater blonde hair color is coming back and has stayed. My skin was always looked beautiful. So what I understand, I will tell you this: if you are a cancer patient doing chemo and radiation, the FDA several years ago approved high-dose IVC. I don't know if they have the full cocktail, but they approved it for cancer patients because they found that it helped to mitigate, it helped patients to feel better after doing chemo and radiation. It helped to heal their body, it helped to stabilize them, and they recovered more quickly. I've yet to hear of anyone that has been able to receive that in a cancer clinic. I don't know if that got wiped out or what happened. I do know that 8 years ago or so, they had approved it. I did a lot of supplements. Those supplements have changed. I've worked with naturopaths and all of these alternative healing professionals. The years of education and the level of education, ongoing education these folks have to do surpasses what is required for Western medicine doctors in a lot of cases, not all. We don't have healthcare in this country. We have disease management for profit. And the reason we have disease management for profit is that natural herbs and vitamins and supplements and energy, those things can't be patented. And our legislature can't, do insider trading and make billions or millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars. The time we are in is going to be known as the Great Period of Cleansing. I want to talk about one more modality, and then I will wrap this up fairly quickly. The last 2 years began because I'm no longer doing my IV therapies. I moved to an area from Arizona that really had no one that did not have natural doctors. And so we've recently moved to Oregon. But basically the last 3 years, so 2021, somewhere in there, I subscribed to Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations. I followed Dr. Joe since What the Bleep, because I think we're close in age. He's probably younger than I am, but his story about how he healed and transformed himself with his mind and then working with his physical body from a severe truck accident that left him paralyzed really caught my attention back and I don't know whether this is the 80s or the 90s, that it was probably 90s when What the Bleep came out. So I'd followed him for a lot of years, and I signed up for the first 2 modules of his meditation series. And so the beginning, the intermediate, and the advanced training finally came to me. After all these years, the one thing I would tell you about natural healing and IV nutrition and those things, everything is out of pocket because the insurances won't pay for food. They won't pay for natural on any level. So if you choose this, you have to have crowdsource, or you need to have family that can help support you, because it's expensive. So I went into, I got through the first 2 modules, and then all of a sudden in the spring last year, there was going to be a Joe Dispenza, advanced 7-day intensive in Denver, Colorado. Well, I spent most of my 31 years in Fort Collins, Colorado, and lots of family and friends there. Felt good about that. Didn't have the money. And then I just, I really got this strong hit from my guides. Sign up anyway. Put down your deposit and then ask for the funding to come to you. So I was on a waiting list with probably 100 or more other people. I got an email from them saying, if you are interested, please come. Finish registering. We have to do some online kind of talking to you about your health issues and if you can handle this and all this stuff. Not only did I get invited, the money came. I had donations from some friends, and my husband said, we're going to take it out of the rest of it out of savings. So we did that. And it's really at a time where we've blown through most of our savings because of paying for my treatments. My husband had all kinds of frequent flyer miles, so I got my airline ticket free. I couldn't get into the hotel where the training was being held out near the airport, DIA, but I could get close, and then I could I did my first Ubers on, and by myself, so I did that. And then more miracles started happening. I met this amazing group of 5 women, and I, again, can't give you their names, but we just became a little clique, through that 7-day intensive and sharing our stories. And one of them offered, because I was really struggling with my health at that point again. I really need to get this part in. Basically, the 7-day intensive, not only was I there, I got to be in the training, but I was also gifted with becoming a healee, which the last 3 nights or last 3 days of the training, at the end of the day, as a healee, I got to go back into the auditorium, lie down on a mat, and chairs were turned around. So there were 6 to 8 people around me. And then Dr. Joe would do his meditation. He would instruct the healers that were sitting around, who are also trainees and probably had been through their own healings. And then he would do a guided meditation. They would turn and they would put their hands out and focus energy on me and a couple hundred other people in this auditorium. There were over 2,000 people at this training. Literally, my body vibrated. And I worked with it. I was meditating with and asking, accepting the healing, releasing whatever was out of body. But we also learned how to pull energy up through our spine, trigger the pineal gland that releases little crystalline, self-medication. It's like the answer to morphine and to other things. And that was one of the things I learned about the Dr. Joe Dispenza encephalon trainings, is that we have the pharmacology within our own bodies. And I knew the body, mind, spirit connection. I knew that we had to release toxic thoughts and toxic experiences from our bodies. But there I learned that through these meditations and ongoing meditations, that I could expand my heart, that I could tap into the internal pharmacy in my own body, and that spontaneous healings happen as a result of that. Also, one of the gifts was I was invited to stay with one of the 5 women. Her daughter didn't show up. She had an extra bed, so I could just stay and not have to drag my suitcase and all kinds of stuff from one hotel through Uber through to there, and then do the same process to go back and sleep in this other hotel. We didn't get a lot of sleep because we had to be at the hotel most of the days at 6, and then there was one that it was 4 in the morning. We did meditations in the group. We did walking meditations outside, which were amazing. It was the most incredible, uplifting experience of my life. And then I flew home the next day on a Saturday. It was like my great grandson was born while I was there, July 24th. So little Pluto Aquarius child. I got home and immediately got COVID. So that was also a gift. I'd had COVID before, but that gift kind of knocked me on my butt for a couple weeks. And it was like, you know what? I think that was also by design, because otherwise I would have jumped into my life to end this. It's like I had another PET CT, because they say, contact them if you've got, and they want to know that you have the medical information, that you have PET CTs and labs and all that kind of stuff when you go into that program as a Healy, and that you have documentation, which I kept everything. So I went in January, had a PET CT scan, all clear. And this is without having the high dose IVC, at least 2 to 3 times a week. And then I developed, like a couple weeks later, I had a port, and my port had gotten infected, and that was causing problems. So April 3rd, I had the port removed. I just want to tell you the reason it's important for us to know that we can heal ourselves. And I'm not trying to convince anyone to do this. Each and every one of us that have health issues have to do our individual research. We have to feel good about whatever our decision is, not judging anyone that does chemo or radiation. But the reason this information is so important at this time is because our world is breaking down, and we are losing health insurance for millions of people in this country because of what's going on with this government. But it has been breaking down. Western medicine is way too expensive. It's left most of us without any other choice than to try to heal ourselves with food, to heal ourselves naturally, which is where we need to go anyway. I want you all to know, and share with friends or family if they come up with these diagnoses, that that's not the only answer. That Western medicine fills us with so much fear that cancer is a death sentence, and it is not. It is not. Know that there are millions of naturopaths, homeopaths, osteopaths, Reiki, acupuncturists, body, mind, spirit people. There's millions of us that have been living on the outside edge of society that are ready and are already here, and that we will be of service as all of this stuff collapses. So you don't have to go into fear about, oh my God, what am I going to do if I don't have Medicare or Medicaid? What am I going to do? I need healthcare. I have cancer. I have diabetes. I have all these other things. There are some amazing chiropractors and who have studied absolute nutrition to the max. And that was a new piece also that I wanted to mention, that I do keto and intermittent fasting. And that also has is part of the process of stabilizing blood sugar, but it also kills cancer. It supports you when you have a plethora of things that will support the demise of these, rogue cancer cells, the dysfunctional cancer cells. So there are so many ways that we can heal ourselves, and we need to be supported by others who have done this. I'm hoping there's lots of other people that will tell their stories on YouTube, and that we can create a community. I have certainly worked with women, particularly with breast cancer, to share the techniques and methodologies, and again, I'm not a doctor. I have no medical experience. I just have done my own research, and I've made choices for myself. And I actually was told by my oncologist that cancer started in 2004. So I'm a 21-year survivor of a very aggressive metastatic stage 4 breast cancer. It hit my lymph system, and I'm still here. I love you guys. Hopefully this is not, the video is not too long and it's still recording, and I can speak more to the different things as we go forward in generational healing. But it starts with ourselves. And as we're moving into a new age, everything needs to change. So we have to learn to heal ourselves, learn to tap into that energy, and learn to tap into that community that can facilitate that process. Much love. Take care. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.